my little snake serving as my phone stand. So this is a good servant here. Yes, doesn't seem to mind. So hopefully we'll protect our signal too, which can sometimes be complicated. Anyway, welcome everyone to our Sunday Salon, where we read from the sacred scrolls that our foundress, Lady Loreon Vigné, put together. And this was actually her last completed project. She went back through a lot of these that she had created and put them together so that there was one per week out of the ones that she thought were particularly important or memorable. And so to keep her work alive, we always include it in our Sunday, and that will be what we do today. So we always begin with the invocation to Isis, and that is inside. You may have to flip it the other way if you want to, but this is to bring forth the energies of the goddess, and goes like this. You may speak it with me if you like. Divine Isis, goddess of 10,000 names, I invoke your grace. Come to our temple, O goddess, dwell in our shrine, make our hearths your altars, our hearts your home. Bring vision and healing to those who use this shrine. Give us wisdom and unveil the truth, and with thy feathery wings protect us. Breathe into us the breath of life and health and strength. And now we honor the directions beginning in the east. At both of our temples here, the cardinal directions are actually in the kitty corners. So you always are looking toward the corner for that. So let us begin. I sing it, but you can say it or however you want, or you can just listen, whichever you prefer. Let us honor the east, element of air with the winds ever blowing. Let us honor the south, element of fire with the flames ever glowing. Let us honor the west, element of water with the rivers ever flowing. Let us honor the north, element of earth with the seeds ever growing. And we honor the spirits above and below with the wisdom ever knowing. And we honor our bodies both without and within with a love forever showing. For we come into this world with all these gifts and more, our very own special essence. Let us thank the goddess for all that she bestows. All right. Well, today, this week's scroll, as presented by Lady Loreon, is the scroll on birthdays. And this is not coincidental, because Lady Loreon's birthday is the 8th of June. And so we will actually be observing that here with a dinner and, time for conversation and sharing of memories. And you are all invited to that. It is a free event, so if you would like to come, let me know if you're coming. That helps me keep on top of the numbers, but even if you just show up, we will welcome you. So that will be at 7 p.m. for the dinner on not a week from today, Sunday, June 8th. So please feel free to come by if you would like to do that. And in fact, we have several events this month that you may be interested in attending. We also have a free dance performance by our training group of priestesses Chimera, led by Ananda Ray. And they are going to be presenting a dance concert performance. We don't dance, but they do, on Friday the 13th. So that is also a completely free event. So if you would like to come, we just ask that you arrive at about 6:45, so there's no, last-minute disturbance, and that will be here in the Grand Temple. And then finally, for this month, on the 21st, we have our semi-annual Solstice Harp Concert, and that's going to be at 7 p.m. on the 21st. And that is preceded by an optional dinner. The dinner is $25 and the concert is $20. But if you have any problem with that, please let me know. We always make arrangements. So lots to participate in here if you so desire, coming up in the next few weeks. And I would love to see any or all of you there. All right. And this is actually the document that she worked with. This was the final document that got printed out. We've been kind of unrolling it carefully every week for a number of years now. Lady Loreon passed away back in 2014 on July 15th. And in fact, that will be an event that we are observing in July on the 15th. We always do a memorial dinner for her then, which is also free of charge. And then since we know she passed away between approximately 10 and 11 p.m. that evening, we come up here and we sit in silence for that period and observe her passing. So you are also very welcome to attend that if you wish. A little more somber than the birthday, which does include ice cream. So she loved her ice cream. Of course, she called it Isis cream. And for a time when we actually were operating as a restaurant here called Mummy's Kitchen, the menu always included Isis cream. So it was a unique time. I don't think there were many Egyptian Thai restaurants at that time. As a matter of fact, it still hasn't really caught on. But we had one for about 2 years here. So, all right. Well, this is Lady Loreon's scroll on birthdays. And she writes, I remember hearing that everything in your body changes every 7 years. When I became 77, I realized that I was on my 11th transition by this way of thinking. One can live many lives if one has a long life, and I have determined to create yet another life for myself. I realize that I can take what I have created so far at Isis Oasis Sanctuary and move in a different direction if I like. I truly feel that the ghost of John Bosch and his wife Louise are still hanging around the old house I live in that is now my home. The work they did for what they believed in was extensive. They took a step toward a one-world philosophy. And just as an aside, John Bosch owned this land. He acquired it in about 1905. And around the same time, he became interested in the teachings of the Baha'i. And the Baha'i were a group that arose in about 1850 in the Middle East, in Persia. And they believed that all human religions were equally valid. And this was, you can imagine how controversial this was 170 years ago. It is still controversial today. Those that practice this faith in that part of the world are often prejudiced against and suffer great persecution. But nonetheless, they took this on and began promulgating this faith. And John Bosch became interested in them. And it may have been, too, that he had a connection with Luther Burbank, the famous naturalist. And Luther Burbank used to come and visit him here. And it is said, though the Burbank Society denies it, that Burbank was a Baha'i. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think he was very much an independent thinker. But we know that his wife led salons for Baha'is and had guests there and so on. So there was definitely a connection. Whether or not he became one, it's unclear. But what is clear is that John certainly became one. And so he, started studying the philosophy very, very deeply and began having Baha'i things happening here on this land. And as time went on, he definitely became one of the leaders of the faith. And the Baha'is also brought him, although he was quite, a man of advanced age. He was probably about 55 at that time. The Baha'is found him a Swiss Baha'i wife. He was Swiss also. and her name was Louise, and so she came, kind of sight unseen here to marry John. And he ended up living to, quite an advanced age, and so they had about 40 years together with each other. And they even undertook becoming missionaries for the Baha'i faith, and they were stationed in Tahiti. So John and his wife spent several years in Tahiti. And at this time, the Baha'i organization was run by the son of the founder. The father had unfortunately died in prison. And so he really liked John, and when the time was coming that he was passing away, he actually sent out, a message to John to come to Haffa, where their temple was, and to be with him when he passed away. So this was, considered to be a very great honor. There were only a few people that were so treated, and so when John finally passed away, he left the property to the Baha'is here. And so they were here up until approximately 1974. And they would still be here, except the state of California, in their wisdom, decided to put a highway here, which split their property. And they took it by eminent domain. Which is when the state can just take your property and, we want, this much of it, and you have to give it to us. But the Baha'is didn't take that sitting down. They actually went to Sacramento, and they fought it very vigorously, with the end result that California stopped their usual procedures for eminent domain, and from that moment forward, they had to consider what the land they seized, what impact that would have on the rest of the land around it. Now, for the Baha'is, who use this as a spiritual training center and everything, having a highway between them and, a sacred grove over there, an amphitheater, many other structures, was, devastating. But at that time, it didn't matter. California would say, okay, each square foot is worth this much, and here's the check. So they ended up getting a substantial settlement from the state of California and moved their operations down into the Santa Cruz Mountains instead for this particular spot. And of course, in the ensuing years, other places had been built for the Baha'is, including a gorgeous temple in Wilmette, Illinois, which I visited, and a number of other major establishments around the world. So they really, our little foothold for them here definitely had a positive impact. It was, their big West Coast presence here. And so while we are very different, we like to honor their memory. And they decided that there were like 9 major religions of humankind. And so they were focusing on those. And Lady Loreon said, well, we're the 10th. They just hadn't gotten to us yet with the goddess worship, because they were elevating Islam and Taoism and a number of other faiths, Christianity in a couple of different forms and so on. She said they just hadn't gotten to us yet, so we're the 10th, and so we are celebrating the goddess. I don't know if the Baha'is would quite count us, but we do remember them. And if you've been up in the lodge, and I think you spent some time in the lounge, that was actually a special room to the Baha'is, and it was called the Room of Loftiness. And the concept of loftiness, of kind of floating above the world, was important to them. It was the name of one of their months, and it was the name of this room. And for their community here, that room was used for their meetings, and also if they had any issues to discuss, there was a special chair of loftiness that the person would sit in and discuss whatever issue it was that was going on. So that room, which we kind of use in a perhaps less sacred way than they did, was very important. And that was the Room of Loftiness. So if you're ever trying to get above a situation, think of elevating yourself in a lofty way, floating like a cloud above it. And just like with a maze or labyrinth, from above, it's very easy to see how things should be going. From ground level, we often can't quite see what we need to see. So think about being lofty now and again, at least. We have to keep our feet on the earth most of the time, but a little loftiness will not hurt. All right, well, I apologize for that rather long digression, but give you a little bit of an idea of our predecessors on this land. And of course, prior to all of that, we had the local Pomo and the Yuki and a couple of other native tribes we know used this land. One of our priestesses is half Pomo, and she was told that the women in her line used to use the resin from our great tree in their basketry. And of course, at that time, the Russian River came up to Geyserville Avenue. And so this would have been almost a riverside location and would have been very pleasant when they were, doing their acorn gathering and also, their crafts and other things too. So we celebrate them as well. All right. Okay. Anyway, she was saying that, John and Louise took a step toward a one-world philosophy. And she goes on to say, I feel I was destined to come on these grounds to make it a holy place for the goddess Isis. This was a far-out concept in 1977 when I arrived here to begin a new kind of existence. Surely all the signs and symbols pointed the way, and I followed them. I thank the goddess for all that I have been given in this new life that I have created. There have been peaks and valleys in my life since then, but I have learned that the valleys are a teacher, and this has helped me to endure. Looking to the future, I will begin again with renewed vigor as I think of the wonderful possibilities that could be created. I encourage all to have a long and fruitful life, which is such a precious commodity. I think of those I've known who have passed on at a relatively young age, and I know that when she wrote those words, she was thinking of her husband, Loreon Vigné. What a shame they miss the amazing changes that are occurring. There's a sweeping hope that the world's madness will end as streams of higher consciousness begin to overpower those that cannot or will not rise above their prejudices and hatreds of each other. It is a remarkable world today, filled with amazing technological possibilities, and I'm very grateful to be alive to experience it. So live life to the fullest. Be a free thinker and work in whatever way you can to bring a new vision to humanity. The Temple of Isis will continue beyond my time to keep the name of the goddess alive. Enlightenment of the universe is soon to be upon us. And may that be so, especially in times that, can seem a little bit more complicated than a lot of the ones that we've been living through. There's much to be hoped for. I'm hoping that, we come to a new and powerful and protective stability soon. But it certainly, as the Chinese curse says, we are living in interesting times. But that's when I think we, especially as priestesses, come into our own. There's so much to be done. There's so many waves of change to be ridden upon or modulated. It's exceedingly easy to give in to despair and distrust, and that's the one thing that we must not do. We have to remain in our own higher self as much as we possibly can be, to just provide that germ of an idea, that little bit of calm that can somehow spread and make things better. And the British occultist whom I admire very much is Dion Fortune. And she wrote that initiates are like the leaven in bread. They're like the yeast in the loaf that enables the whole thing to rise. And if we're doing our part right, even though we may feel very tiny, the effects can be really dramatic. And don't ever think that that's not true. I was thinking about this. I have thyroid issues, so I take a pill every day and have for decades now. But, we think that something really tiny won't make a difference. And as I was taking that pill one morning, I thought, I may think that some tiny effort doesn't matter, but look, there's this tiny little pill that I'm taking, and this keeps me in much better shape and form. And how can I doubt that something really tiny can have a huge impact? So now when I take that in the morning, I often, kind of flash on that way of thinking that the tiniest thing, the tiniest little bit of a substance can have outside effects. And so we can have outside effects, even if we are not, thinking that we're capable or big enough to have a really big impact, we can. And if we're consistent and if we're accepting of the fact that by us having those elevated thoughts and feelings, by us reaching up to the goddess and all sorts of the divine to bring that down, it can have a huge effect. So don't doubt yourself. Even if you think it's not worth it or can't possibly have an effect, it does. And that also means it's, important for us to not be silly Pollyannas or whatever, but to focus on the positive. And I can have a negative streak myself. I can get overwhelmed. I can, go, oh yeah, this isn't right, this whatever. But if we can keep it a little bit more elevated, I think that is a powerful thing to do right now. And I think one way of doing it, which I've been trying to practice, is really celebrate. If something goes right or well, over-celebrate. Be overly happy at something. Oh, I found the parking place. Oh, they had what I needed. Oh, that, whatever is good and positive, just enhance your reaction just a little bit. And I think that this can help form a wave of happiness, because one of the tools of powers that be can be encouraging fear and darkness. And so if we can instead make a little inner vow to encourage happiness and pleasure and all of these things, I think that that's a good balance, and it makes it easier for others around us to do the same. And those others around us may not be people we're talking to, it may not be people that we see, it may not even be people that we're aware. I think there's kind of an effervescence that can spread, and you may never have direct contact with someone, but that effervescence that you've helped form for yourself, I think, can multiply and make it easier for all those around you. So, God is blessed. May that be so. One thing that Lady Loreon was very emphatic about, and one of the reasons that she called the Sunday service just about anything but Sunday service, it was Sunday Salon, it was the Sacred Scrolls, it was all these things, was that it shouldn't ever be a one-sided conversation. That, what you have to say and what you feel is equally important and may be fully divinely inspired for everyone to hear. So I'd like to open it up to anyone that has anything to comment on what I've said, what Lady Loreon wrote, or just what you're inspired to bring up, would be most welcome.
I thought it was interesting. She wrote this in 1977?
She didn't write this in 1977. This was probably written somewhere around maybe 2010, 2011. Because she did this every week, and when she put it together in a book form, a scroll form, that we know, she completed that sometime, I think, in like the spring of 2014, which is when she passed away. So she passed away in summer. So it's sometime before then. So we're moving on toward 20 years ago. Yeah.
So I found it interesting that, she was talking about the state of the world then.
Yes.
And how we're so focused on the state of the world now, right? Because we're living in these times now. But I found it very hopeful that we go through these cycles. We always go through these cycles. We've gone through it before, we can go through it again. We can make it through. And yeah, so I thought that was an interesting
Well, I think that's a really important thing to remember, too, because there are times, this is a hard one. I'm not diminishing that truth, unfortunately, but these things do happen. The cycles do happen. And what I feel is, that we are on a cycle of evolution spiritually. But what happens is, it's not like we're going, It's more like we go around and then we go around again and it's a little higher, and we go around again and it's a little higher. But we're still going through the same sectors of things in that circle. And if you look at it, it's possible that this is an important purging time, that we really refocus. I think we've certainly gone through a period where everyone has gotten very internal, and now we're feeling, because there's a sense of maybe outside threat, we're starting to turn to the outside a little bit more. And we've gone through a period of great isolation too. But because of outside forces, I think we're looking more to our groups and our basic family of people that see things the same, and maybe feeling that call to be a little bit more active and a little bit more unified. And I think overall that's going to be a good thing, because we have a lot to deal with. I mean, this would be a remarkable time if we were only dealing with AI, or if we were only dealing with the politics, but everything has come together. And we have our resident astrologer here. Some of you may have met Ra, and he's been very helpful to me, because just pointing out some of the big shifts. And one of it is the planet Saturn has just started, this massive news cycle. Just a few days ago, it went into it. And so that supposedly has been something that has beleaguered many of us. And it's not, going to shift really soon, but hopefully it means that, really a lot of old things that are negative will pass. And hopefully we'll bring in some new positive things that we don't even know about yet. But are we in turbulent times? Yes, we definitely are. So may that be of some benefit to us. I know we don't like thinking of turbulence or challenges as being spiritually beneficial, but nonetheless, sometimes there are lessons there that do help us. Eventually shall be helpful. Yeah.
But I really appreciated you saying, to really celebrate the good things.
Yes.
Because, I think, probably many of us think of, being, holding gratitude and reflecting, but celebrating really brings it in this outward, no effect thing in the world. And I think, that's a good thing to start implementing. To keep it.
Yes, absolutely. And one thing about Lady Loreon was that she was quite the punster, and she enjoyed wordplay and playing with words. And I remember, it may even be in one of the scrolls, that she made the joke that, the Catholics had gotten it wrong with their clergy, that that it wasn't supposed to be celibate, it was supposed to be celebrate. So, yes, definitely, and things might have worked out better that way. So, but so it goes. Yeah, it was very, very interesting. I watched the movie Conclave the other night, which is about the transition for a pope, and then of course we had this basically brought to us live, and it was an interesting thing. A lot of the structure of Catholicism derives from the ancient Roman temples, including the temples of Isis. And so there's a lot of, I always find a certain, professional interest in how they're handling things, how these things get done. But yeah, definitely, they would have saved themselves a lot of trouble if they'd concentrated more on celebration rather than celibacy, which they didn't seem to get right. So, yeah, so it goes. I think the important thing on that topic is that we just try to be as ethical as we can be in our relations with everybody, and however that forms, to try to get through it with grace. And that's one thing that you can also ask the goddess for too, to pray for the grace, which we do, and to have that ease and grace, and hopefully as few unnecessary complications in our lives as we can. There's always going to be some, but as long as we're in this earth, trying to make it a little bit simpler for ourselves is probably beneficial too. Yes, and Emily Raw, who's in our audience today, says, thank you for the reminder that small things can have big impacts. And she also says, may the disturbances make way for new growth, and may that be so. So. All right. Does anyone else have something they would like to contribute?
I was really struck by when you read about how she was saying, even at 77, she wanted to make this fresh determination
Yes.
to create like a whole amazing life.
Yes.
Because I feel like especially now at this age, where like this year I'm watching my son graduate and he's young, and I get into this mindset like only young people. I mean, it's not true, but it's an unconscious story. Like, oh, young people go through these massive changes, and I think I've discounted myself in that. It's easy to get older and feel like, oh yeah, how many years do I have left, and what do I want to do with it? And versus like remembering that birthdays are a new beginning. And
Yes.
that whole deTraci idea of like just looking at life like it's the first time all over again, and being able to start fresh and really create something new and amazing. And so that's what I'm taking.
I think that's a really good lesson to take from that too. And I'm reminded of several people right now. I know several women that have decided in their retirement they're moving to Portugal. And so far, of the ones that I know of, that's been good decisions for them. And but you're talking about women in their late 60s or even early 70s who have decided that that's what they want to do, and they've researched it and they've planned it, and now they're doing it. And that, is something that for me personally sounds terribly daunting. It's like to do that in older age rather than, when you're, 22 and you can learn the new language and you can be an au pair or something like that. It's a little bit different situation. But I know of a number of women that are just, going forth no matter what. And one really exceptional person, I don't think she'd mind me mentioning it, there's a woman named Julia Stubb, who came out here, and I met her when she visited Isis Oasis some years ago. And then she unfortunately has been suffering through some really disastrous health situations, and it's taken her about 2 years, and there's been moments where the outlook did not seem really good, and what she's had to go through, I won't go into detail, but a lot. Let's just say a lot, more than just what most people go through when they're going through these types of things. Well, she's gotten through them. And she started posting her paintings and things again online, lots of images of trees of life, and they're beautiful and everything. And she decided to move to New Mexico. And she's, somewhere back east, I forget where exactly she is, but, she has, pulled it together, and it seems quick to me just from, of course we get these little slices of pizza called Facebook posts. You see one today, one tomorrow, one 3 months later. It kind of compresses everything. But I'm so impressed with that. And just because she has been physically through really challenging situations, but has that meant for her that she's just going to sit and kind of try to hang on by her fingernails? No. And she's embarked on this whole new adventure. And so that won't be right for everybody in a similar situation, but it's good to know that for some people that can be right. And to just keep open that sphere of possibility. It's very easy to let it close down. And but there's some people that just have that spark, and they're not going to let that happen. Loreon was one of them. This other woman is another. And it's something for us to all cultivate, that if you don't like your situation, you don't like your circumstances, no matter where you're at, there might be a way that you can make a very dramatic change for the better.
That's
So,
courage.
yes.
It's courageous to dream big and be willing to do something totally different.
Yes.
It's a courageous muscle.
Yes. And it's something that you can practice and strengthen. And just learning to take things on with a little bit bigger field of vision, and see if that doesn't show you some possibilities that you might have missed. Right. Is there anyone else that would like to contribute today? Well, thank you very, very much for being here. And I do hope that all of you have enjoyed your day at Isis Oasis Sanctuary and benefited from the guidance of this lovely priestess. And we will be back here next Sunday. We broadcast it out on ISIS Oasis Sanctuary page. And on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, I also, on my personal Facebook page, I do the noon rite in the small temple. And Justin, whom I don't think you've gotten to meet today, he does it on Wednesdays and Fridays, again from the ISIS Oasis Sanctuary page. So you have, 6 days where you, if you are so desiring of it, you can have a little taste of what we do here. And again, I do hope I get to see some of you at some of the events that are coming up. And also hold in mind that our big event is in October here. And I'm sure Dailey's gone over that with you already, but that's a lot of fun and very interesting time where we have all sorts of presentations and rituals, and it's 4 days of activity. So I would love to see you there too. So, and you are always welcome to just come by and go into the small temple or come up here. You're always welcome. So please take advantage of that if you so wish. All right, and thank you to our audience out there. If anyone else has any final comments, please feel free to go ahead and put them in the comments, and we'll be glad to read them. All right. As always, we give thanks to the gracious goddess Isis, in whom all things are possible. We give thanks to... Okay.